Howdy folks, sorry about that. I had a bit of difficulty there trying to get my camera to work the right way around. It was convinced that I was in fact upside down. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, welcome back to Coffee and Colours, or Colours and Coffee, or whichever way around I had it. So cheers. Right, so we've made quite a bit of progress since I last streamed, so just to give you guys a quick update of where we're at, we've got these two Orc Commandos finished, or at least table ready. I can't remember if I showed them off before, but that's them. And yeah, I think they're looking pretty good. You know, they haven't got all of the highlights or fine details or whatever on them that they might do, but they had a bit of dust on them. But I would not be ashamed to put these on a table. So while there's still a bit of work to be done, I'm quite satisfied with that. So we've got these two still on the stands, and then we'll maybe press on with some of the other completely unpainted ones. So what I was going to do was going to do this guy, and I have got him nearly finished. I don't know if you were with me last time when I was painting this guy, who we have affectionately nicknamed Knifey. I was going to do a little bit of extra effects on him, try and paint some blood spatter on his knives. I should also point out one little detail I love on this guy is the fact that he has two big shell casings in the net on the back of his rucksack. It'd be real nice if the camera would focus on that. There we go. I can only assume that Orky logic suggests that if there's always a bullet out there with your name on it, if you own said bullet, then you cannot be shot with it. I can only assume that is how orcs think. Because they're clever in their own way, but sometimes they're just not quite on the mark with their logic. But have a quick rummage in my paints here for the bits I was after, because we were going to paint some blood spatter on this guy, and we have this wonderful little paint here called Blood for the Blood God, and it is exactly what it sounds like. Let's give it a shake, just mix the paint up. It is paint designed to look like wet blood, and it doesn't really ever look like it's dried, which is kind of what we want, to be honest. So what we're going to do is we're just going to take our the brush that we normally use for dry brushing, and we're not going to bother watering this down or anything. We're just going to get it to a point where it is almost like dry brushing with a very wet looking paint. And all I'm going to do is just take this dry brush around the edge of his knife and just pull. Draw a wee bit, maybe not quite good enough on the brush there. Draw a wee bit back, like that. And you can see it's pulled a wee bit in places, but that, when the camera refocuses, should hopefully look like he's just chopped someone up with it. The trick is basically making sure that we kind of get the same effect on the other side, because well, knives are relatively symmetrical, so again, we just want to kind of draw back from the edge of the blade there. Now, I've seen other people using this paint, and what they do is they take a dry brush like this with its the stiff bristles. That's really what you want in a dry brush. You want the stiff bristles. So you can use an old wrecked brush for it quite easily, and they'll kind of like flick the bristles to throw spatter at something. That is great if you want to look like blood has come from another source. But what we're kind of going for is these knives, if he's put them to use, the edge of those blades is the point of impact. So what that means is that, as far as we're concerned, the edge of the knife is the source of the blood. So we do kind of want it to streak and come back from the edges there. You see he's got a nice sort of wet streak down the front of the blade there, and it looks like the blood has kind of been drawn back and over the blade because he's basically just been chopping with them. And that is basically our blood effects. That when that paint dries, it's going to go sort of glossy colour. So the blood is going to permanently look wet because of that gloss effect. But that's fine, because if we're playing a game and this guy's on the table, chances are he has just stabbed someone. That is his purpose. So looking like he knows what he's doing, or doing what he knows, whichever way around you want to put that, is frankly just par for the course. So I realised I made a mess of my stack of spare paint here because I can't find the colour I'm looking for. There we are. So we're just going to round him off. You can see I've already done most of his base. That's got a wee handy sort of texture paint on it. Now, you get that from Games Workshop. I think you might have... I don't know if I've used that on the stream already. Called Armageddon Dust. And what it is it's a deliberately textured paint. It's got bits of grit in it, so that when it dries, it goes kind of lumpy. And it actually looks a bit like dirt or earth or whatever. So, we've got that, and we've thrown a shade over it, so you can see the little bumps and lumps on the base there that look like dirt and gravel. They've kind of got a sort of dark edge around them. That's great because that's kind of what happens when basically dirt gets piled on top of dirt. You get these tiny little shadows, but what we want is the highlights now. So I'm just going to take a slightly larger dry brush because we're working on a slightly larger area. I'm just going to gently use a lighter colour to just drag that across, and you can see that catching. If I hold that up, you can see, and it just catches the edges of it. Excuse me. I've been battling a cough for a wee while now. Thankfully, it's nothing serious. It's definitely not the big C19, but it's bloody annoying, I'll tell you that. So we just do a wee bit of dry brushing, and that highlights his base and everything absolutely perfectly. Now I am going to have to stop because I just heard my gate go, which means that's the postie. So I will be with you momentarily. Super apologies for that, folks. I'm not sure how to pause a stream mid-flow when I'm recording from a phone. Excuse me. Anyway, so that's our guy. He just needs the yellow rim down the side of his base now. And that's pretty much going to be him. Oops, knocking my coffee mug there. Now, I need to clip him out of the stand for that. Yellow is an absolute pain in the ass to paint. I'm kind of punishing myself a bit here for having to use that, but bright yellow like that is very hard to do. I had to use multiple layers of this paint here. I don't know if anyone really knows if Games Workshop has a really good yellow. This one's not bad, but it's not quite as bright as I need it to be, but it serves perfectly well as a base coat, and I'll try and brighten up. So I'm just going to throw a wee bit of that down, and hopefully through the layers we can just build up that rim and call this guy finished. And then we can carry on with the last of these 4. And you guys can see some of the other stuff I've got to work on. So he's just going to be a wee work in progress as the layers go down. Right, this guy is, I don't know if he's a demolitions expert. He has a ton of like dynamite, explosives, hammers, and this giant battering ram. Definitely built for breaching. So I'm going to stick with tradition, and I'm going to paint his battering ram bright red, because he's not really a breacher if he doesn't have a big red door knocker. So let's get a brush that we can control our paint with. So this one should do. Whoops, that's me just headbutting my lamp. I'm doing well today. A day may come when I stream on a Monday lunchtime and I'm not interrupted by something, but it is not this day. It's kind of thrown me off a bit. But we're just going to throw that on there. The thing I love about orcs is they are so ramshackle and random and crazy that you can just paint whatever colours by and large that you feel like on them. I kind of love that you can just, you know, go with ridiculously bright colours because the orcs think it looks good. Again, you can probably see I'm using contrast paint again. Contrast is just, well, I'm using a lot of contrast on these guys, but it's so good for painting either hard to reach bits and getting you some instant shading, which is, well, basically painting the hard to reach parts the old fashioned way, where you put down your base color, then you shade it, then you highlight it. It's like 3 times the work, whereas you could just throw one of these and no one's really going to look too closely at that bit anyway, at least not if you're painting to tabletop standard, which, to be honest, I currently am. I'm always looking to improve, but these guys I am just looking to get finished sometime this year. I had hoped to try and get my orc kill team fully painted and table ready by the end of Orktober, but life just kind of got in the way. So that is what it is. And I'm just painting as much as I can, and hopefully I'll get them done before the year's out. Now this red coat here is not the most consistent, but that's fine because contrast is not meant to be a consistent paint. It is meant to seep into the recesses. But I think on the big flat bits, it doesn't necessarily give you all the same shade of the colour you're using. So like you can see there's wee streaky bits in here where the red's not as red as it is in other places, and that's fine. We can solve that with a second coat. It's not a difficult problem at all. I think just for comedy's sake, I'm going to paint that big box on the side of that thing yellow, because I think that's that bit there with the wee lightning bolt. I think that's the power unit. There's a couple other wee plates and grills and stuff on here that I'm probably going to go over and maybe paint in a metallic, but the bulk of this thing is just going to be red, because that's the colour your door knocker should be. I think I'm going to leave the end of the ram though, and I'm going to paint that more like just bare metal, because it's probably seen a lot of use. but the problem with contrast is you do need to let it dry between individual coats. So we're not going to be really doing a huge amount more on this bit. I'm just going to paint this handle, not the metal bolts or the spurs that he's holding onto or that connect it, but I think having the bar there the same colour as the rest of the battering ram should be fine. Just tie it together a wee bit. This is the thing with contrast, is that, like, to my eye, as this orc is just now, I can't help feeling it just looks a wee bit rubbish. But at the same time, like, when you get to the end of it, like, this is the finished result, so you just kind of have to trust the process and stick with it. Because eventually it will start looking like you had in your head. But it will not look that way at first. It absolutely will not, and that's the trick with contrast paint. You have to be patient with them. Got a wee bit of pooling in there, so I'm just going to straighten that out. You're not really meant to disturb contrast paint once it's where you want it to be, but if I don't fix that, it's going to look way worse. He's got a wee sort of pneumatic tank on the side there, but I think I'm going to do that in a different colour as well. So that's our big red door knocker. So while we're on the subject of this guy, whose base I'm just going to put another wee coat on. This is the thing about multiple coats, is it builds up the layers much more consistently than if you just put on one huge thick coat of paint. Well, I think I might have thinned this a little too much. Had a heck of a time trying to paint this guy's shirt, actually, because when I left off the stream, it was I'd used a normal skin color to paint it, because orc skin is obviously green, and you know, a green shirt on a human skin tone looks absolutely fine. But what do you do with a green skin tone? You can't paint the shirt green. So I thought I'd flip them around, and I used one of the fleshy contrast colours. But the problem was it looked a bit too much like actual skin, so I had to go back over it, and I gave it several different washes. So that was a brown wash over it just to give it some recess shading, and then I kind of had to change the colour slightly. So we got a red wash and then a red glaze. Glazes, for those of you who don't know, are not like washes. They don't give shading or depth. What they do is they change the colour ever so slightly. So it shifted it from a sort of pinky skin tone on the shirt to more of like a red fabric, and that was exactly what I was after. So now he just looks like he's wearing a sort of army surplus shirt, which was pretty much the look we were going for. Now, not entirely sure what to do with this guy's shirt, because I don't want them all to look the same. That's the thing. Orcs never look identical. They're too disparate and crazy, frankly. So I think what we'll maybe do is we'll give this guy a more conventionally coloured t-shirt. You know what? This guy is clearly meant for kicking down doors and busting into places, which means he's likely to get shot at because he's going to be the first one through the door. So what we're going to do is we're going to give him a blue shirt, because, or maybe we'll give him a blue helmet. Maybe that's better. Yeah, I think we'll give him a normal colour t-shirt and we'll give him a blue helmet, because to orcs, blue is a lucky colour. They have this whole thing where different colours mean things. So red means that it goes faster. Now, painting the battering ram, well, I guess it just hits the door harder if you swing it faster. Yellow is sort of like blue in that it's lucky, but what it also does is it makes things explode. So if you want something to really go bang, you paint it yellow. But there's also one particular group of orcs that just, they paint everything yellow because they think it looks fancy. So, you know, you can take your pick with those. I think there we are. There's the black. We're just gonna give him a black shirt. Am I using the right brush for this? Yes, I am. It's fine. You don't want to use a brush that's too big for the bit you're doing, because otherwise you'll just make a mess of the paint. But I think, given this guy's got like a sort of fully enclosed helmet face mask type thing, and a big battering ram for kicking down doors, we could kind of give him like a SWAT gear vibe. I mean, not that orcs would ever be so organized as to make a disciplined team of officers, but these guys are commandos, which makes them sneaky, which means they have at least enough discipline to be sneaky, which is, you know, quite an achievement for orcs. They are not famous for their subtlety. The fact that they get any sort of sneaky unit at all is kind of amazing. This is probably going to need multiple coats. Again, just because it's probably going to dry streaky. Contrast is weird. You get some colours that are much stronger than others, and then you get others that are very dark, but they don't necessarily fully flesh out on the first coat. The tagline was one thick coat when contrast paint was released. But that, if you want to keep your painting neat, that absolutely does not hold true. You can kind of get away with like 2 moderately heavy coats, but just essentially dipping your model in the paint is not gonna get you the result you want. Now we are going to have to paint some yellow on this guy somewhere, because that's kind of my conjoining color. Like that particular group of orcs that like everything to be fancy, the Bad Moon clan. That's my favorite bunch. That's the faction I usually play. So, well, when I'm playing orcs, that is. They're not my first army. Or even my main, but I do have a lot of fun with them. But they all have that conjoining yellow colour, so I need something to tie them all together. And I think I'm probably going to have to go back and redo a lot of these belt straps and buckles and stuff, just because in order to get at the various bits of his shirt, I've had to just go over them with the black. But that's fine. Sacrifices have to be made if you want to actually paint models after assembly. And that sacrifice is using a little bit of detail in the areas that no one can see, so it's not really that much of a loss. Alright, do we do his trousers the same color? No, I don't think we do. We need to break that up a bit, so we'll do the usual black boots, just because it doesn't look weird if everyone's wearing black shoes. It does look weird if everyone's wearing the same colour trousers. But again, you would expect a bit more unification in a faction that wasn't as crazy ramshackle and bolted together as orcs. The thing with orcs is that they look weird if you paint them all identically. You do need to give each model a wee bit of personality. So that's what I'm trying to do. Even though I haven't really done any conversions, these are the first orcs that I've built in a very long time, so I stuck to the instructions on that one. Maybe one day I'll do a conversion of a commando squad or something, but it is what it is for now. And I am going to be streaming again this week. I know for a fact that I will be doing a little bit on Wednesday afternoon, early evening, around about 4 o'clock. And I will be keeping it Warhammer themed. I will be playing more Dawn of War. I really enjoyed that little session I had last time with replaying the single player campaign, but hopefully this time we won't have the technical issues that we had of trying to get the resolution to work. It's a really old game. Like, it came out in the early 2000s, and the resolution at which the monitor on my PC runs did not exist at the time Dawn of War released. Screens just weren't that high definition, and or just weren't that big. That's not to say the monitor for my PC is huge, but definitely games definitely did not run at the resolution that thing runs at. So that's what it ended up being. But I think I've gotten all the bugs out now, so it should run fine. So hopefully you'll be able to join me for that. And yeah, I may branch out into other stuff at some point, but right now I'm just having a lot of fun with Warhammer and Warhammer related content. So I'm just gonna keep doing that until inspiration strikes to try something else. Cheers. Right, so that's his shirt. What do we do for his trousers? Do need to get some yellow on there that isn't just his lucky exploding yellow. Maybe if I did the straps in the yellow, that might work. I'm just going to tidy up a wee bit here, because a lot of this black contrast around the belts and straps here I've just noticed is dry, so that lets us get in and fix the messy bits we had. Although that base colour on the wet palette there is a little too damp, a little too runny. Excuse me again. This cough has been driving me up the wall. I'm hoping it'll clear up by Wednesday stream. If it's not, then I don't know. I might give it a miss. I don't want to skip, but the problem I've got is that it does become quite hard to talk after a while. Now, I'm doing okay just now, but it is causing a bit of an itch, and I think if that continues to persist, then, because my Wednesday stream's a wee bit longer, I go for an hour rather than 45 minutes just because I've got the time. It's going to be a problem, because I like being able to talk, and I imagine you guys watching this probably don't want to just sit there in silence. Although if I did have a handy webcam, because at the minute I'm just recording this from my phone, which is why I have trouble pausing it when the postie inevitably chaps the door on a Monday. Although if anyone knows how to pause live streaming from a phone without completely disconnecting the stream, do let me know. That would be super helpful. Another coat of yellow around this guy's base just to get it consistent. You know, I'm not sure that some colours that Games Workshop make take as well to a wet palette as others, because that's just, it's spread out a wee bit across the wet palette. It's just gone so runny. So I think I'm just gonna use my dry palette for that, just to get a more consistent coverage. Yellow's streaky at the best of times, but the problem is that the base paint is so thick that even just trying to put it on straight out of the pot, well, you've got all the problems that you normally have with thick paint, but you've got all of the streaky problems you have with a paint that's too thin. Or you don't know if Games Workshop just don't put enough pigment in their yellow paint. But then if they put more pigment in, that means less liquid, which means that the paint's going to be thicker, which means that you'd have to thin it down more when you take it out of the pot. So, I don't know. Maybe yellow's just a pain in the ass as far as colours go. That said, Games Workshop paints have come a long, long way from where they began. Way back in the day, you basically didn't paint yellow unless you're a bit of a masochist, or you had a really good hardware store somewhere in your neighborhood. I don't know if you can see as we put the second coat of red contrast paint in here. That red is just getting a level of depth that we didn't have previously. It's looking a very red now rather than a streaky red. But that's fine because contrast itself is naturally thin as a paint. It's designed to be that way. But what we're getting here is we're getting consistent coverage by adding that second coat. Which means we get rid of the streaks. And then I'm going to have to go back and redo some of this piping, but that's not really a problem. So that big red door knocker is now looking very, very red, which is exactly what we want. And we are just going to repeat that process with the black shirt. Probably going to need a few wee highlights on that, just to give the black some depth, because there's places where there's like holes in his shirt. But we are trying to just get that consistency of colour across the whole thing. Excuse me. This cough is really starting to take its toll. I might call it a little early today, guys, just because my voice is going. You can probably hear it breaking up, which is frustrating because this cough is otherwise not really impeding me whatsoever. Like I said, it's not COVID. It's the tail end of a bug I had at the start of last week, and this cough is just the bit that's persisting. Everything else is back to normal. But I think once we finish this, just so you guys can see the difference that a second coat makes on the black as well as the red. Do his boots while we're here, just for completeness. And at some point, I think I'm going to try and figure out a schedule where I can basically get these streams up and keep them relatively regular, just to make life easy for you guys to find my channel. But I think while I've still got this cough and I am still figuring out Twitch, it is going to be a bit of an experimental process. Right, there we go. You can see how solid the colour that black is now. And the recesses are shaded quite nicely, but it is going to need a wee bit of edge highlighting. But we can come back to that another day. So before my voice gives up the ghost completely, I will I'll thank you all for joining me. And hopefully, if my voice allows it, I will see at least some of you on Wednesday. Ciao for now, guys.